A gloved hand closes around a stem at the base and pulls. Roots tear loose, dirt scatters across the pavers, the plant lands in a green waste bin that's already half full. Multiply that single motion by every backyard in the country, every spring and summer for decades. And the number of plants destroyed this way runs into the billions. Almost none of the people doing it have ever asked what they were actually killing. Weed isn't a botanical category. It's a decision made by someone who never looked closely enough to change their mind. Repeated so often it stopped feeling like a decision at all. 10 of the most commonly destroyed plants in an average yard are sitting in health food stores, foraging guides, and centuries-old medical and military records under different names. At a markup most people would never guess. Doing jobs most people would pay for if they came in a labeled bag from a garden center instead of growing for free at the edge of the driveway. This is what actually gets pulled, and what it was worth. Let's start with chickweed. It spreads low and fast, usually noticed only once it's carpeted a bare patch in a matter of weeks, and pulled for that speed alone, as if growing quickly were itself the crime. That speed is exactly why foragers seek it out. Chickweed is edible raw, tastes close to baby spinach with a faint sweetness, and carries real vitamin C for a plant that costs nothing and needs no bed prepared for it. It also thrives specifically in the compacted, low-fertility soil most vegetables refuse. The strip beside a driveway, the base of a fence, the gap where nothing was ever meant to grow. It isn't surviving there by accident. It's one of the only things volunteering to grow there for free, in the one spot nothing else was invited. And the next plant on this list has been surviving something far harder than bad soil. Then there's wood sorrel. Small, clover-shaped leaves, a taste that hits the tongue like a lemon wedge. Most people register it as that sour weed and pull it before a child can taste it. That reaction skips over what's actually happening chemically. The sourness comes from oxalic acid, the same compound that gives spinach and rhubarb their sharper edge, and in small amounts, wood sorrel delivers a real dose of vitamin C alongside it. Foragers have eaten it raw off the ground for generations, using the taste itself as the identification test. No lemon on earth grows at ankle height for free, and yet this one effectively does. Children have historically chewed the stems on their way past without knowing what they were eating, just that it tasted sharp and good. It has quietly been a free snack sitting in millions of yards, ignored because nobody ever put an actual lemon next to it to compare. Everyone knows this next one, dandelion. This one gets sprayed, dug, and cursed more than almost anything else that grows in a lawn. And it might be the single most complete food plant most people will ever throw away. Every part is edible. The leaves work as a bitter salad green. The flowers can be eaten or fermented, and the root has been dried and roasted as a caffeine-free coffee substitute since long before instant coffee existed. It isn't a fringe use. Dandelion coffee is still commercially sold today, and dandelion wine has its own long tradition in home kitchens. The same lawn care industry that sells billions of dollars in herbicide specifically to kill this plant is, in effect, competing with the food crop that seeds itself for free every single year. The plant that gets torn out purely for showing up uninvited is one that people used to cultivate on purpose. Forgotten Land digs one of these back up every single episode. Subscribing with the bell on means the next one actually finds you. Back to weeds. Next up, broadleaf plantain. Not the banana relative. The low rosette of ribbed leaves that pushes up through cracked concrete and worn footpaths where almost nothing else survives. It gets treated as proof a lawn has failed. What it's actually doing is running a taproot straight down through compacted ground that a shovel would struggle with, slowly opening channels for air and water that nothing else nearby is capable of creating. It's a botanical relative of psyllium, the fiber sold in supplement aisles, and its crushed leaves have been used for centuries as a quick treatment for insect stings and minor scrapes. Native Americans noticed it spreading along colonial settlement routes so reliably that they gave it a name that had nothing to do with botany, white man's foot. Because wherever settlers went, this plant showed up behind them, riding in on boot soles and cartwheels. It isn't marking a dead lawn, it's one of the few things actively trying to fix it, and it's been following human footsteps on purpose for over 300 years. Next is purslane. Thick, glossy, reddish stems that spread flat across bare soil in the heat of summer. Dismissed on sight as a succulent nuisance that takes over a garden bed in weeks. What actually takes over that fast is unusually efficient at something almost no other leafy plant does well, storing plant-based omega-3 fatty acids. Purslane has been documented carrying more alpha-linolenic acid than any other leafy vegetable tested, tasting faintly of spinach and cucumber at once. It grows in cracked, sun-baked soil that kills lettuce outright. In Mexico, it's sold in markets as verdolagas and simmered into everyday dishes. Across Greece and the wider Mediterranean, it's a standard ingredient in mixed wild green salads. The exact plant pulled from an American flower bed and thrown away is bought by the bag 2 continents over. The plant thriving where a vegetable garden is failing is, nutritionally, doing that vegetable garden's job better. It's just doing it under a name nobody at the grocery store recognizes. Time for red clover. Small pink flower heads on a plant most people only notice as filler in a lawn, right before the mower takes it down along with the grass. What that mower is cutting off mid-work is one of the only plants in the yard capable of pulling nitrogen straight out of the air and depositing it into the soil through its roots. The same reason farmers plant it deliberately between crop seasons, with research from cover crop trials putting the nitrogen contribution at roughly 70 to 100 pounds per acre in an average year, for free. The flowers themselves are edible, used for centuries in teas. A homeowner paying for bagged lawn fertilizer every spring is at the same time mowing down a plant doing part of that job unpaid. Here's one everyone's touched: stinging nettle. The reputation writes itself. Brush against it once and the sting lasts an hour, which is usually enough for someone to spray the entire patch out of spite. The sting itself comes from thousands of hollow needle-like hairs covering the stem, each one tipped with brittle silica that snaps off on contact, turning the rest of the hair into a hypodermic needle that injects a mix of histamine and other irritants straight into the skin. That precise defense mechanism is what a plant used within living memory as a wartime industrial material. During both World Wars, when cotton supply lines were cut, nettle fiber was spun into cloth and used for uniforms as a direct substitute. Cooked. Heat destroys the sting completely. The leaves are also unusually dense in iron and calcium for a plant nobody planted on purpose. The thing punished for its defense mechanism was, within the last 100 years, holding a supply chain together. Ever heard of yarrow? Feathery leaves, flat clusters of small white or pink flower, pulled constantly for looking untidy at the edge of a bed, without anyone noticing what's actually landing on it. Its scientific name, Achillea, comes directly from Achilles, the legendary Greek warrior. Battlefield tradition held that his soldiers packed crushed yarrow onto wounds to stop the bleeding, which is why older herbals still listed under the name soldier's woundwort. That reputation as a healer of injuries runs alongside a second, quieter job it's still doing today. Its flat-topped blooms function as a landing platform for the insects that eat garden pests for a living. Ladybugs, lacewings, and parasitic wasps that lay eggs directly inside aphids and hornworms. A yard that keeps this one plant is running free, unpaid pest control at the exact spot it grows. It's arguably the most quietly useful thing on this entire list, and it's usually the first thing removed for looking messy. And now, chicory. Tall stalks, pale blue flowers that close by early afternoon, mowed down as roadside scrub without a second look. Its root has a documented history as a coffee substitute stretching back to 18th century Prussia, and it became essential rather than optional during the Civil War, when the Union blockade of New Orleans cut off coffee imports and residents ground chicory root to stretch what little coffee remained. That habit never left. Chicory coffee is still a defining part of New Orleans culture today, sold commercially, generations after the shortage that started it. Long before that, France had already turned chicory into a national coffee stretcher during Napoleon's early 1800s blockade against British trade, which cut off coffee imports to the continent, with France reportedly exporting tens of millions of pounds of chicory annually at the practice's peak. A wartime substitute people were forced into twice, on 2 continents, became a tradition nobody wants to give up. Made from a plant most yards still treat as roadside scrub to be mowed, and the one almost nobody expects. For the end, we have ground ivy. Ground ivy, also called creeping Charlie, it's a low-spreading mat with small purple flowers that earns more herbicide spending than nearly any other plant on this list, blamed for choking out lawns from coast to coast. Long before that reputation existed, it had a different name, ale ivy. For centuries before hops became the brewing standard in the 1600s, this plant was the primary flavoring and preservative used to brew beer across Europe. clarifying the liquid and adding bitterness the same way hops do now. It was brought to North America by early settlers specifically for that purpose and for its medicinal uses, first recorded on this continent as far back as 1672. And it has spread through nearly every state since. Crush a leaf now, and the same sharp, minty scent that once flavored a continent's beer is still there. An entire category of beverage was built around the plant, now sprayed off the ground, purely for spreading somewhere it wasn't invited. 10 plants. 10 reasons the word weed describes what somebody decided, not what something actually is. A plant fixing nitrogen for the lawn, choking it out. A fiber that clothed soldiers when cotton ran out. A flower running free pest control at the edge of a flower bed nobody's watching closely. None of them changed. What changed is that somewhere along the way, almost everyone stopped looking. So, of the 10 just covered, which one is sitting in a yard right now, waiting to be pulled again this weekend?